many things. So you've got to focus on one or two things that you know you do well, get really good at that, build your business there, the product market fit, the business case, the customers.
Mhm.
You know, you want to have, there's a book called Raving Fans, and it's all
Mhm.
about, cultivating those people that are willing to kind of be your champions and to shout that, hey, we want this product. You've got to build those raving fans within whatever focus you choose, and get good at it, obviously, and then build from there. And so that's what we've done.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo, and my guest here today is Peter Yewell, who is the co-founder and CEO at Outpatient App. Peter, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. Appreciate meeting you and the opportunity.
I'm excited to have this conversation, one, because of so many great things even in the past and your experience in business, but also because of the very valuable things you mentioned about Outpatient when we first had our conversation. So why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about the business as well.
Sure thing. I'm pretty much a career tech guy. I've lived in the San Francisco Bay Area for a long time. I'm not from here. I'm originally from the Midwest, but our family moved out here when I was first working with Yahoo, broadcast.com, and then Yahoo, and then for a bunch of years with Facebook. So a lot of consumer technology platforms was my background,
Mhm.
and always on the business development side. I am a recovering engineer. My co-founder likes to joke at me. I used to be the software engineer, and I gave that up many years ago to be on the business side, which is probably better for all of us.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and Brian, the other co-founder with Outpatient, he and I met while working at Facebook. And the idea around Outpatient App originally was to essentially create again, I'm going to use an analogy that comes from our background in technology, but the idea was around the concept of a productivity tool aimed at the healthcare
Mhm.
industry for patients, families, and the medical service, people helping the patient, to allow for more collaboration in the process. And as you may know or may not know, but the healthcare industry tends to lag the technology
Yeah.
state of things in the rest of the world, and we were trying to kind of solve that a little bit. And so originally started with the consumer user, mostly to build a product. So like, you can't really sell anything unless you have a solid product. And we wanted to get our product underway. So we gave our product out for free. We asked people to use it in volumes and then tell us anything that might be wrong with it. And one of the things we built into our app was the ability to just shake the phone
Mm.
and automatically have a pop-up that says, tell us anything.
Mm.
And we got tons of feedback from that, and mostly on things to take out of the product, actually, and some things to put in, but
Mhm.
focusing it to be, the need and to solve the need was really the key there. And then we started to expand into commercial health.
Yeah.
uh, Working with health systems, children's health systems, and other kinds of specialist health systems. This was leading into what we didn't know was right around the corner was COVID. And COVID had a pretty significant impact on our business at the
Mm.
time. We had several health systems that we were about to launch in early 2020. And interesting, like right around that time, we got approached by a military organization within the Air Force asking if we'd be interested in applying for an innovation opportunity to
Mhm.
build stuff for them.
Yeah.
And so we approached that, took that opportunity, and essentially won a contract to build out what I would describe as productivity tool for healthcare, but aimed towards service members within the military.
Yeah.
And so that began a domino of things where we're now working with the DoD and have recently won. What we've learned is we're the first company healthcare software platform to reach or to win a phase 3 contract within the Department of Defense.
Mhm.
And
It's awesome.
what that really means is, taking the analogy of Slack for healthcare, as civilians, you and I, we kind of track our own wellness. We can go to a doctor if we want. We can certainly have checkups and things. It's voluntary. We know we should probably do it,
Mhm.
but it's up to us. if you're any form of service member in any way, there are compliance requirements for you to be medically cleared for duty at all times. And
Mhm.
so, what our platform has really evolved into is a compliance tracking system that essentially digitizes that checklist of things that they knew they need to do,
Yeah.
and then automates the workflow to keep them compliant against whatever that checklist says they have to do.
Mm.
And that's what our platform does today. It's a compliance tracking and readiness tracking system. The same concept could be applied to, consumer health
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
types of things,
Yeah.
but that's how we evolved into what we're doing.
No, that's awesome. And I was just about to ask, and you literally finished your sentence with my next question, which is interesting. Even though you guys have had this adaptation phase based on just how business ended up working out, really going into the military side of things, it's still applicable to many different avenues and many other types. Sorry, many other intricacies. What am I trying to say here? Many other types of areas within healthcare. Is that right?
Yeah, so yes, it is. And
Yeah.
and to give you an example, y take, like, airports, for example. We
Mhm.
all traveling around for business, you see, people doing, waving the wands on the
Yeah.
airport, moving the planes in and out, people driving the things, even the pilots flying the plane. All of those employees of, some organization have medical compliance requirements. You may have heard the phrase OSHA, OS, and that's an occupational health requirement to do their job. So
Mhm.
pilot, for example, construction workers, certain types of medical workers have these same kind of compliance requirements. So that's a direct correlation to what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, just tracking. I've recently had shoulder surgery, and I go to physical therapy now every week. And it's funny watching the front office at the PT offices on the phone, emailing to schedule their appointments.
Mhm.
That's exactly what we're solving in the military side. So that's again another area within normal everyday life
Mhm.
where what our platform does applies to other things as well.
Very, very cool. And then now using the I would assume that using all the experience you've had from the many other ventures in your career, this is where you look at things like the physical therapist booking those appointments manually, and it's a problem that you can solve. But because of the focus of what you guys are trying to achieve, that's not someone who you guys go after to acquire a new business. Is that right?
Not right now. I
Oh,
mean, one of the things that, this is a software startup company, even though we're a few years into it, we're
mhm,
still thinking like a startup. And one of the rules that you have to live by if you're going to succeed at this is you've got to focus. The phrase is you can't boil the ocean, right? You can't
mhm,
try to do everything. You will fail 100 out of 100 times if you try to do too many things. So you've got to focus on one or two things that you do well, get really good at that, build your business there, the product market fit, the business case, the customers.
mhm,
You want to have, there's a book called Raving Fans, and it's all
mm,
about, cultivating those people that are willing to kind of be your champions and to shout that, hey, we want this product. You've got to build those raving fans within whatever focus you choose, and get good at it, obviously, and then build from there. And so that's what we've done. And we know very well that there are other categories that are very close and adjacent to what we're
yeah,
doing now, and building let's be honest, building a first class business around the US DoD creates a great validation of your business.
yeah,
And so if you're going to go into another adjacent business, having that as your test case, if you will,
mhm,
certainly is a feather in your cap. So
mm,
I think we're happy where we're at. We do recognize that there's a lot of areas to expand, but there's a lot of other things that we haven't touched even within the area we're in. So
interesting. I'm wondering if you have any specific beliefs or ways that you approach building the culture or building the vision of the company in a way that's a little bit different than what we can someone might call the usual way of doing things or the usual way of doing business. Because it sounds to me there's a lot of a lot of hidden lessons that you've had from doing so many different things that allows you to pick your battles and have that focus, as you said. So, is there any specific belief or way to approach things, if it's building company culture, if it's hiring people, whatever it might be, that you think is different from the usual methodologies?
Well, I do believe team and culture first are critical.
Hmm.
When you're, I mean, like coming from the days of the, early days of Facebook or Google or Yahoo, those kinds of companies grew up with this mission to solve whatever it is they wanted to solve, right?
Yeah.
And that concept of, being mission driven um, does apply to a lot of companies. But let's be honest, when you're working in this space that we are, it's
Hmm.
very much mission driven, right? It's critical. And so that does translate to building a team first culture
Mm.
and allowing for your employees, your the people around you to have a part in that, right? And to
Yeah.
feel like very much a part of that, mission
Uh-huh.
that they can rally around.
Uh-huh.
And so for us, one of the benefits of being the type of company we are is we've never really had an issue with recruiting.
Mm.
We have more candidates that we'd love to bring on than we really have the bandwidth to do right
Mhm.
now. That may change, if
Yeah,
we
of
grow to
course.
be, much bigger. But right now, that mission element of culture is really important. And
Mhm.
the other part of that, so I would say people and product are really important. And so that product, I talked about the raving fans. Obviously you're building a business. This is B2B software, so revenue is king and
Yeah.
very important. But if your product doesn't solve the problem, then revenue won't happen anyway. You
Yeah.
can only sell so much. So it's really important that your product works, that people believe in what you're doing. And when you do need to adapt it quickly, that's
Mhm.
when that culture comes into play. Like, you
Mhm.
know, you can't drive people to build things, all the time. You have to pick your spots and,
Yeah.
so having the culture, having the product and then your customer base sort of creates that team feeling. And
Mhm.
and that's, I think, very important. Certainly when you're building software,
Mhm.
and I'm, not a hardware guy. I'm not a consulting person.
Yeah.
I'm not running a retail store. So, like I'll stick in my lane.
Yeah.
But one of the things about software is that you can iterate pretty quickly,
Mhm.
right? And so that works when you have constant feedback from your customers and a team that's willing to kind of get into that cadence of iterating very quickly.
Mhm.
And we learned that from certainly the days of Facebook and before, applied that here very early on, got our team into this cadence of we're going to push out updates every single month.
Mhm.
And for however many years now, 150 plus versions, we have pretty much stuck to that, pushing
Mm.
out new versions every single month, which allows our team to be in the cadence that they're used to. And it also allows our customers to constantly
Yeah.
feel like they have direct input in what we're building.
Mhm. But it also gets tied back into what you said earlier, which is everybody is driven by similar purpose. Like, the purpose is aligned for everyone. So
That's
it's
right.
not an issue to have those constant innovations, to have those constant updates, to have the team meetings of like, okay, we might have to adapt and do this quick shift, but everybody's going towards the same direction anyways. So people are willing to take those steps.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. I think for product-oriented
Yeah.
engineers, which is, most software engineers, that's where I would call them. They love this.
Yeah.
Like, engineers wanna invest in their time into something that they believe in and where they can see that it's making a difference.
Mhm.
And, one of the nice things about being in the space that we're in, it's very easy to see the benefit that we're delivering and the benefit that they're receiving.
Yeah.
And so our team feels very much a part of that, even if they're not always sitting in the meetings. And we do talk about that weekly. We have Monday morning stand-up meetings with our entire team, and it's, where you go around the room, each person gets 5 minutes to say what they're doing.
Sure.
But the fun part about that, I think, for most people is when we talk about the reaction that our customers are having.
Mhm.
And occasionally, we do bring them in, like,
Sure.
so that they can hear it directly, right? So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
instant feedback for them as well. It's always helpful. It never gets better than having a real customer saying, "Hey, here's what everything that you guys have been doing, how well it's been affecting me, my company, and everything else that we do." That's really, really awesome. Um,
I
you
Yeah.
said the words earlier. You said the words "revenue is king," and I couldn't agree more. Just on a business perspective. Of course, attached to that phrase was the product and the service has to be good first for the revenue to come. But I'm wondering, so many different companies I speak with, everyone loves to talk about the great successes and the things that are going really well, but I think that's the conversation that doesn't always bring the most value. So I tend to like to talk about the challenges into achieving a lot of those successes. So if I were to ask you guys, when you're having that phrase in mind, revenue is king, what are some of the challenges that occur that get in the way of being able to acquire more revenue predictably? If it's the client acquisition, I'm sure there's a lot of internal operation sides that get in the way of that, as you said, when it comes to product. But really looking at how can we optimize everything that we're doing to make sure that the revenue coming through can come through predictably, but also scalably as well.
Well, I think you have to understand your market. And so let me give you an example. Previously, working at Facebook, that's a consumer technology business.
Yep.
Most of our customers were advertisers. And so we had, product sets, if you will, ad product sets, if you will, targeted towards bigger brands like Procter and Gamble or Ford, right?
Uh-huh.
And even maybe subdivided by category, like, automotive versus retail. Uh, Today, our product set and customer set is a health system, but it's a specialized health system,
Yeah.
right? And so you have to understand that and then be able to play into how their acquisition cycle works.
Uh-huh.
And that's very different than a consumer technology business. So I think that's first and foremost is understanding. Second, you have to kind of speak their language a little bit. I mean, if you're going to go into a health system, you need to talk their language a little bit. If you're going to go into a car dealer and try to sell to a car dealer, whatever it is you're going to sell, you have to be able to talk their language. So, I mean, there's a little bit of that. And then I would say that, the other thing is being able to leverage those customers that are already using your product that are willing to kind of champion what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
When you're talking about innovation, you can bucket customers into three groups. The, the 20% that are willing to lean in and be the maverick, the type of innovators. And then there's 60% that are sort of in the middle and are willing to kind of lean in, but also, might be just a tad conservative. And then, of course, there's the 20% that are very conservative. When you're building your customer base, especially early on, you got to understand who's where in that matrix.
Mhm.
Um, because the people that are going to lead you first are going to be that first 20%. They're going to be the ones looking for innovation and willing to lean in towards it. And one of your jobs as a company is to make those people look good.
Mm.
And if you can succeed at doing that, then they get promoted and you get, used more broadly.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
I've made a career out of seeing that happen. Like, you know, uh, and 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 so you have to build it's trust.
Mhm.
It's knowing when to ask for the business and revenue. It's also putting together a pricing model that can scale.
Mhm.
Um, you don't build a business off of one deal. You have to be able to scale a business. And so
Mhm.
if you go for everything all at once, maybe you win. A lot of
Yeah.
times you're gonna spend a whole lot of time here and maybe, and get nowhere. So I
Mhm.
think, what you have to build towards is a customer that you understand, a
Mm.
champion that's willing to kind of raise their hand and say,
Mhm.
"I want this, I need this, and I want more people to hear about it." And
Mhm.
then you have to have a business model that will scale, that
Mm.
can iterate fast.
And it all starts with that trust because then that can compound into everything else that you mentioned, which is, hey, they'll be open for that innovation. They'll be open for trying new things. They'll be open to talking about you to more people. Of course, bringing you more word of mouth, referrals,
That's
etc.
right. I mean, there's another part of this too that I think few people talk about, and that is that, any big enterprise customer, when they invest in your product, part of their analysis is not just the product and the solution and do people want it and this is a fair price and all that kind of typical
Mhm.
buying stuff. They also want to know, are these guys going to be around? Are they
Mm.
stable? Are they going
Yeah.
to be around? So they, so like they're not. So the price isn't really the issue. It's that
Mhm.
it's make it fair enough for everybody. But then you're going to be here in 5 years. How does this scale? Because we want to work with you in 5 years and have more people work with you in 5 years. And if you're successful, we're successful.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a part of every conversation, but I do believe it's a part of every analysis. And so you have to build your model
Mm.
around something that can scale so that you can answer that question if ever asked.
That's really cool. And I personally relate to that one because like when we are operating, we're trying to, of course, have more client acquisition for our company as well. That shift in the perspective and the mindset of, hey, how are we going to approach this possible opportunity? It's not just like a vendor and purchasing relationships. Like, oh no, how can we make this a partnership so that whatever we do to make you guys grow, of course, we will want to see that, but it's a mutual beneficial. It's a mutually beneficial engagement where it's a true partnership. Like, how can I best support you, and how can I make sure that everything that I do is going to set you up for success? Because that's what we want to see, as opposed to just say, yeah, buy my stuff and hope for the best, right? Um,
Yeah. I
hmm,
mean, people are going to negotiate, and that's just part of everyday business
yeah,
life,
uh-huh,
and so, but you have to know what part is going to scale and
yeah,
what it takes for
hmm,
that to work. And so, planning that out, doing a lot of, being ready for that, I think is very important.
yeah, very very cool. And I would love to ask a question that I've been asking almost everyone that comes on the podcast, which is this: despite having so many different priorities in business at times, many things that we want to focus on, many problems that we need to solve. If you had a magic wand, Peter, and you could just wave this wand and solve one thing, a challenge, an obstacle, a hurdle, whatever it might be in the company, that would allow you to hit your revenue targets, your client acquisition targets, whatever they might be on the back end. You wave this wand, snap your fingers, it happens just like that. What's that one thing you'd like to solve?
I think that answer really depends on the stage of company you're in.
Mm,
And so assuming, your product is solid, you've got product market fit, your team is stable, you don't need to, you're not like handicapped in any way. Assuming that your customers are really happy and you're ready to kind of take off, then I would say awareness
mhm,
and internally like having your own customers champion more broadly. Like,
mhm.
we're
Would that be the
basically
case for you right now? Like for outpatient as it is?
yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. I mean, like, we're in the case for now where we're scaling. But the way in which you do that is, I think, dependent upon your customer type. Like,
Mhm,
if we were working with consumers, for example, then it would be a lot of advertising marketing to the right type of user. If we were working with commercial health systems, then it would be, potentially email marketing or some kind of, network effect within that type of industry, going to conferences and things like that, maybe. But within the DoD, that this represents a different type of marketing effort, I guess it's and so but I do think that awareness is key. And so one of the things that in our particular, I would call it for your purposes a tactical example. Like right now,
sure.
we have people that are using our product and they are actively telling their leadership organizations, we see a lot of broader value in this.
Mm,
And that's starting to create a domino effect of things.
mhm,
Whatever your business is, like, understanding your customer base, having product fit, and ready to scale, and then using, as much as comfortable your customers to essentially communicate to other customers however they're comfortable doing,
yeah.
I think helps a lot. Um, I'm not necessarily a sales guy, but I'm a sales guy,
Mhm.
and my job is business development.
Yeah,
And so you want other people to tell your story as well as you do. And
yeah,
if it's a customer who has experience using your product, they're going to have the emotional edge that you just can't replicate.
Mhm.
Right? So I think, the more
Yeah.
you can use that to your benefit,
Mhm.
that awareness starts to be well known.
Mhm.
Here's an example.
Yeah,
I
I would love
describe
to yeah, I would love to ask, and sorry to interrupt you here, but I'd love to ask how that's, because the DoD is, of course, a much different market than the usual market, the usual industries of so many different companies. So I would love to ask how that's applicable into what you guys are doing and how that usually works. Of course, not to give away your entire strategy of how things happen. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
well, I mean, let's take a regular health system example. I mean,
Mhm.
let's say you're working with a single hospital or a smaller regional health system, you know, asking them for reference material that can then be shared with other people, folks within the same industry, or introductions to people you think they may know, or what, that networking within an industry using people that are working with you, I think is really important. You can also turn that into marketing materials if allowed.
Yep.
One thing I would say is you don't wanna talk about a person unless they give you permission.
Of
Like,
course.
that's, that's pretty key.
Yeah.
But, should that be acceptable, then that's a great way to show how your product is helping others,
Mhm.
and that applies, I think, to any industry. It certainly applies within the what we're doing today, but it applies to any others as well. And I think that so, but you have to put things into their benefit
Uh-huh.
work. In other words, what's this do for you? Why do you want this now?
Mhm.
What's the benefit to you right now? What challenge do you have that we might be able to help you solve?
Mhm.
And is it efficiency? Is it time saved? Is
Mm.
it, reducing, burden on certain types of individuals?
Mhm.
Is it an increase in their business, receptivity? Whatever it is, if you can put it into their terms, you're gonna probably get a better
Yeah.
reception.
Uh-huh. Interesting. And then out of that whole spectrum of things that are happening internally, when looking at outpatient, what do you think is the hardest part? Is it just reaching out or finding those people to be aware of? Is it building that trust with them? Is it showing the case studies that you have for current clients so that they can see the success that they can have as well? Is it just initiating those conversations? What would you say that is?
Well, I think, initially it was proving ourselves,
Mm,
and then, that was, breaking in. I think we've accomplished that part, and so now expanding, it's sort of using, um, you can sort of look at it by roles. So think of buyer by their title over here and a buyer by their title over here, and you want to try to align them so you get this guy to talk to this guy, and
yeah.
then you know they're hearing it from their peer, not just from me, right? So however you can replicate that is, I think, very helpful.
Hmm.
That's one. And then, if you've really hit at the pulse of a need, and I think that's part of identifying product market fit. Like, if you've really hit at something that they need,
Hmm.
then you can probably more quickly and broadly share that message along with, reference material from people that will customer to customer,
Hmm.
explain that. And that's definitely something that we've seen work within our environment here. One of the things that government types are very sensitive to is outlandish comments, spammy material, or people that are a little too aggressive
Hmm.
at how they approach. So you got to be careful with that.
Of course.
And I would say I would probably apply that rule to any business, but
Yeah.
certainly other businesses are more tolerant of aggressive tactics than some are more tolerant than others.
Hmm.
That's certainly not the case within the government, I think, in
Yeah.
my experience anyway, and so we
Yeah.
try to build trust first, and then, I'm gonna tell you something, but I also want you to ask the same question from somebody else
Hmm.
so that you hear it from both of us,
Yeah.
and that's how we're approaching this. And also at the enterprise level, like, so, you can there's a lot of think of a big health system as having a bunch of hospitals across whatever region.
Sure.
The the Veterans Administration, VA health system, has something like 1,200 clinics across the country. So you could start by, approaching one by one, right?
Okay.
And that doesn't, maybe you have something that one of them will be interested in, and you could kind of go that way. Eventually, you're going to want to go upstream and talk to the administrative levels of the VA and have them essentially push out your solution, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by enterprise level.
Hmm.
And so, we first started by working with one entity because that's how we were introduced. But pretty quickly we realized, like, for this to succeed and be really, valuable, for it to scale, I use
Yeah.
that word a lot, we need to be more broad. And so we have been able to work our way upstream, if you will, and now working across that level.
Yeah, no, very, very cool. I love that insight. Thank you for sharing that. And I have one final question here for you, Peter, which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you are. So here's the question. Are you
All
ready
right.
for it? And this is interesting because sometimes this question at the end is not really relevant to any of the conversation, but I think this one actually might be very relevant for because of one comment that you made earlier in our conversation. So here it is. Ready for it? If you had to share one book that changed your life's vision, which book would that be?
Okay, so I'm in a software startup company, and I do read pretty voraciously around, stories and stuff. And there's a lot of startup books.
Mhm.
Ben Horowitz wrote one called "The Hard Things About Hard Things," and it's pretty good. It misses one fundamental area, and that's fundraising, which is one of the hardest things to do when you're starting a company. So I think that's a big gap. Probably my favorite book on trying to teach somebody what it's like to start a business is actually the biography from Phil Knight. It's called Shoe Dog.
Yeah.
And what I love about that, about what he does, is he's very transparent about how hard it was in the early days of building what was then called Blue Ribbon Shoes. And that company almost went bankrupt multiple times before they eventually kind of started building their own, designing and producing their own product. They were a reseller first. um, and and then what it took to do that, hiring the proper people to build culture, what was going to be their marketing message. I mean, every kind of facet of trying to build a business, revenue, advertising, what worked, what didn't, what were their competitors doing, everything about it. I mean, he doesn't really at all leave any stone unturned, including, how close they came to failing on multiple occasions. And so in terms of being just completely transparent of how hard it is and what it takes, but if you stick with it and don't quit, there is a path to succeeding.
Mhm.
To me, that was just very valuable at a time when I wanted to hear all of that, right?
Mhm.
So that would be my answer, Shoe Dog.
No, I love it because I've I've read snippets of it. I haven't read the full book yet, and it just keeps popping up everywhere I go, everywhere I speak with. So I think this is the last sign for me to just give it a full read once and for all. So I will definitely be doing that this weekend. But Peter, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you for the conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you or maybe a little bit more about Outpatient App?
Well, I mean, our website is getoutpatient.com. And so, check us out. Uh, Outpatient app, if you search it on Google, I think will show up pretty high. And the website is getoutpatient.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and you can find me on the website too. So,
Phenomenal.
that's
I'll of course leave everything down below here if you want to check that out. And if you're still listening to this conversation and you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for your time, Peter. Thank you.
absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.